Hi, I'm Sarah Miller, and I'm going to be analyzing the poem Holes by Scott Lewis. I had been in that hole for a very long time, in the dark and the damp, in the cold and the slime. The shaft was above me, I could see it quite clear, but there's no way I ever could reach it from here. Nor could I remember the world way up there, so I lost all my hope and gave in to despair. I knew nothing but darkness, the floor and the walls. Then off in the distance I heard someone call, "Get up, get ready, there's nothing the matter. Take rocks and old sticks and build up a fine ladder." This had never occurred to me, had not crossed my mind, but I started to stack all the stones I could find. When I ran out of stones, then old sticks were my goal, for one way or another I'd get out of that hole. So I soon had a ladder that was sturdy and tall, and I thought, I'll soon leave this place once and for all. I climbed up my ladder. It was no easy chore, for from lifting those boulders my shoulders were sore. I climbed on up the ladder, but soon had to stop, for my ladder stopped short, some 10 feet from the top. I climbed back down my ladder and started to cry. I'd done all I could do, I gave my best try, and in spite of my work, in this hole I must die. And all I could do was sit and think, why? Was my ladder too short, or my hole much too deep? Then from way up on high came a voice, "Do not weep." And then faith, hope, and love entered into my chest, as the voice said to me that I'd done my best. He said, "You've worked very hard, and your labor's been rough, but the ladder you've built is at last tall enough. Do not despair, you have reason to hope. Just climb up your ladder, I'll throw down my rope." I climbed up the ladder, then climbed up the cord. When I got to the top, there stood the Lord. I couldn't be happier, my struggle was done. I blinked in the brightness that came from the sun. I fell to the ground, his feet did I kiss. I cried, "What can I do to repay thee for this?" Then he looked all about him. There were holes in the ground. They had people inside and were seen all around. There were thousands of holes that were damp, dark, and deep. Then the Lord turned to me and he said, "Feed my sheep." Then he went on his way to help other lost souls, and I got right to work calling down to the holes, "Get up, get ready, there's nothing the matter. Take rocks and old sticks, build up a fine ladder." It now was my turn to spread the good word, the most glorious message that man ever heard, that there's one who is willing to save one and all, and we've got to be ready when he gives the call. He'll pull us all out of the holes that we're in and save all our souls from death and from sin. So do not lose faith, there is reason to hope. Just build up your ladder, he'll throw down his rope. So this is a narrative poem with a clear beginning, middle, and end. It tells a story to drive home a deeper point with a purpose to inspire. This poem uses more of an end rhyme style, which I find to be more popular and simple, easier to digest for the general population. It's something that a lot of our music uses and more simple poetry uses. So it's just easier to relate to and understand. For the tropes and schemes, tropes being plays on thoughts, the tropes of this poem used metonymy, allegory, and hyperbole. For metonymy, that means using one concept for another that's related. So it used holes to represent being trapped in a life of sin, being trapped in a life of spiritual death and darkness. And it would, I feel like it used that image, holes, of that. For allegory, that's personification extended to narration, an event or object that represents deeper ideas. So in this idea, climbing the ladder, he's climbing out of a life of darkness. He's climbing out of that hole that is human sin and despair. And for hyperbole, that means overstatement. So when he gets out, there's thousands of holes. When he's trying to build his ladder out of this hole that's so deep he can barely see the top, he had to lift boulders, and his shoulder was sore from the work he was doing to build this ladder that wasn't good enough. And then for the schemes of this poem, which schemes is a play on rhetoric rather than thought like tropes was. For amplification, he uses epithet, which means adjectives that are notably vivid. So the dark, slimy hole. And he uses address in this poem as well. Exclamation and command. Exclamation, he has the cry of emotion that his ladder wasn't good enough and he's going to die in this hole. And he cries out, "Why?" And then he commands. He uses command. When the poem first starts, someone commands him, and when he gets out, he has a command. He says, get up, get ready. There's nothing the matter. Take rocks and old sticks and build up a fine ladder. He's giving a command. And I think that having an address is kind of like addressing your reader or your audience. I find that it helps bring and pull you in. If you're hearing or reading a command, it almost ignites you like you're supposed to be doing something. And then he had a verbal play. He had paranomasia. He had a little pun in there, just one little part. He said, I blinked in the brightness that came from the sun. And the poem says S-O-N, not S-U-N. So, thank you. I hope you enjoyed.